Good evening to everyone here this evening. It's called to order the Fountain County Planning Commission meeting of February 27th, 2025. If you'd all stand, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. You may be seated. First order of business, we have the minutes from the 2020, January 23rd, 2025 meeting. And we have the minutes for that. We have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
KW makes a motion to approve.
There's a few changes that need to be made to the minutes. On the
We don't have a second, so we can do this. Hang on one second. We'll do Jamie. Yeah, and we'll have this. We'll have some second. All right. So Campbell.
comment here on my comment said. Campbell said he was sure, it's not sure. Backwards. And then on the votes, took me a while to remember this. Didn't KW abstain on some of those votes? So we need to, I think we need to show the abstention then. And then on the other vote we had, just said vote 341. We don't know which way that was. So I think that needs to be clarified.
So on page number, so it'll be
One abstain.
so 4 against, 3 or 4, and 1 abstention. And what was the other point that you had, Campbell? I got the one on the abstention. We got the abstention there that KW is abstaining on the
first one, and then right in the middle there, third page, or just a 341. That's what you're talking about.
That's the one you're speaking of. So there was four votes against, 3 votes for it, and 1 abstention, so it did not go forward. Any other notes on that?
And what was the other portion of the page were you on for the other amendment you had?
The first one. The first one is the first page. We've got 7-0, but I think it needs to show that KW abstained. 8-0 doesn't matter because it's clear that everybody voted on that. And then the second paragraph, the third page, like I said, it just said vote 340, so we don't know for sure which way that was and who voted. And then my third one was the next page, the comment. Got my comment back right. Campbell said he was not sure that it'd be a really thing. That's the third paragraph on the bottom side of it, or fourth page.
Campbell said that he was not sure, is what you're saying, the change there. Okay. Any other changes that we need to make to the minute? So with the amendment of that being so that way we can change to page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, so we can remember those and memorialize that. With the amendments being on page number 3, being the vote was 4 against, 3 for, with 1 abstention. With the change on page number 4, in the paragraph that says the advisory board makes recommendation to the commissioners and asked if the advisory board has the authority to approve a permit. Campbell said that he was not the change to the word, not sure if this would be the duty of the APC. with those changes there, that would be the vote with those amendments on that. Do we have a motion with the amendments? For the amendments on, with the amendments on, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Jim moves for with the motion on that. Second. KW seconds. All in favor? Opposed? Seven zero. Following members are present. Mark Bertolino, he's absent. Jake McGraw.
Here.
Jim McKee.
Here.
Kenneth Rice.
Here.
Amber Rorks.
Here.
Jamie Schonkweiler.
Here.
Don Schrock here. Campbell White.
Yep.
There is a determination of a quorum on letter C. Next order of business is appointment of an APC attorney, Michelle Harder. You have before you from Lesky Harder LLC. An engagement letter and fee arrangement on that. Michelle, did you want to have anything to say on that? If you want to come around and address the board, the board have any questions for Michelle? Any questions for her to serve as APC attorney?
I want to know the story on this. Did Ethan quit? Since we just found out about this 6 minutes ago?
Ethan did not quit. Ethan, in discussions I've had with Ethan, it's good practice in many counties to be able to spread the counsel amongst several attorneys.
I'm here too.
And he can speak to that as well. We spoke.
I was gonna say I was too busy, but then she because it was a baby stuff.
She's got the ace of spades up her sleeve.
Yeah, that doesn't work. I'm happy to do it. I don't necessarily want to do it. I think it ends up being a lot of work for one person. I got a lot on my plate right now. I think it's a good idea. The more these boards, you can get other people in. It's better for the county for a lot of reasons, but mainly I don't like the idea of one attorney having to stand in all of this. If I can, all the other county staff, there's other people here who quickly replace me. Reasons like that.
Any other questions?
KW, how much did the county or approve, or what's the budget for an attorney then?
I believe it's $20,000 for an attorney.
The budget for the attorney was 20,000.
So my question is, are you gonna be here at each meeting?
That depends on your needs, right? I don't have to, I mean, obviously it's travel. If I drive up here, I can participate remotely to save some costs. If that works, I can consult as needed, to save costs. It really is up to you, whether you think you need my presence or not. Doing the math, that 20 grand is like around 57 and some spare change billable hours. That could go fast. That's my right. That's my concern.
How do you third on? I have no idea shit.
She's participated in cases that I'm somewhat familiar with, if you will, is represented others that have Title 36 concerns in Indiana code. So I think she'd be an asset for that.
Very good. What's your specialty of practice then?
So I do a bunch of things. I'm generally just a civil litigator. I do small business representation. I do appeals. I do election law. So just, general civil stuff.
Other questions we have?
Specialist in zoning then?
I'm not,
So what other? And if it's confidential, obviously, and it's very, but what other cases then do you? I mean, John said you're in other cases that, are you involved in those cases, John, or?
I'm not.
Okay.
can't speak of any, obviously, can't speak to any case specifically, about going confidential stuff. I will say this, I've never represented on the government side, I've represented individuals on the other side.
So if you showed up here for each meeting, let's say we've got 12 meetings, how long would we try this here for you?
That's about an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, so let's see.
One way, yes.
So you got a 3-hour round trip, meetings are at least 2 hours, that's 5 hours per meeting. That's 60 hours just to show up to meetings without any outside work, so the 20 grand isn't close, is what I think. Just so the county knows that we're aware of that. So is the plan to have her draft the ordinances?
To be in the she would be consulted in that, yes. There would be consultation on it, yes.
Well, I personally feel pretty strongly an attorney should actually be present. With what we're doing with the drafting ordinances, everybody in the county has to live by. I think that's pretty important. So. When did you contact her, John?
I don't believe that I remember the date. I know I received this February 18th. I believe it was right around February 16th or 17th, something like that.
Why did you not give us the engagement letter until we got to the meeting? I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at it at all.
I submitted the engagement letter to you and put it on the agenda.
But you just gave it to us today, right?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
So Ethan, you're the current APC attorney, right?
I didn't come to the last meeting. Pretty sure I didn't. Will I put it in?
No, I don't think it was.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm not trying to be smart, but I've been pretty informal about it with the commissioners too, which is, hey, I don't know what this looks like, you don't know what this looks like either. Let's try it out for a little bit and see if we can come up with an agreement. And I submitted an invoice for January's work just at $250 an hour, about $2,500. And they didn't have any problem with it, and it should have been kind of fast and loose, which is probably not the best way to do it, but at the time I knew what I was getting into, that's what I did.
Have you looked at this document at all?
No,
Are you still going to do the PCA attorney then?
yes. And tip my list of my news notes on. Yeah.
Well, just for reference, I'll tell everybody I had about 300 hours of legal work in this last year, which is the reason I didn't want to run it anymore. So,
That you donated, right?
yeah. Okay. That's all I got.
other questions we have?
Jim, as the county council and KW, the commissioner representative, is there what would be the process if billable hours, if we did go ahead with contact, and if billable hours went over that $2,500?
Kelly, Council President.
I believe that Ms. Harder has assisted the council in a matter that we're dealing with currently, and so far we've had excellent communication with her. She's done a good job for us. If I'm not correct, Mrs. Harder.
Finally. So we have a question before us, is we, having an attorney, you stated that 300 hours that you did pro bono for the county for
That's about last year.
last year.
Yeah, that's the reason I really didn't want to do so much this year. But
So we used pro bono work, which is not a problem. But we used pro bono work, so the amount. So if we were to use, how many hours can we use here? I believe here was, the amount was $350 for this, and you just stated, if I'm not mistaken, $250 an hour?
no, that's even.
That's my. Correct,
Not at 300 an hour.
but Ethan stated $250 an hour.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So if we did the math on that, do we even have enough hours for, on that, for us, for our budget, if we stayed with Ethan?
How many hours do you anticipate needing, I guess is the issue, right?
I think that's the question we have, before us, so then we would have to potentially petition the, council anyways. Even if we were to remain with Ethan, and then we don't have the spread of multiplicity of lawyers, representing us.
So it's a difference between, so Ethan's rate would be about 80 hours. Michelle's rate would be about 57 and a little bit of hours. So there's the difference for everybody who's quick math.
Well, the point is 20 grand covers her showing up to the meetings and helping us out on the spot, which I think is very important.
Unless we do remote.
But yeah, but then you're saving 2 hours or 3 hours, and you're saving about half of that. But the 20 grand is not going to be enough to cover anything else, like drafting ordinances, all the background research, all of that. I think we're going to be able to.
So you're proving my point, we must go to the, council and petition for more money, so I guess we'll show up at the next council meeting in order to show them that we need more money. Especially with your $300, $300 an hour at 300 hours at $300. That adds up quick. Not to put the council, I'm not putting the council on. Oh, thank you. And you got to pick them up later.
Hi.
Amber.
When we did the budget for consulting fees and lawyer fees, they were originally combined. This year they busted them out and separated them between consulting fees and legal fees. Kelly, I know in the past we transferred money from one line item to another if we needed it. The money's.
Really don't want to do that, but I do know that you have 20,000 in part-time.
Yeah.
We may be able to. On hiring a part-time person, it's not sweet, because I don't foresee that happening with the APC. This range of these paths. But I believe that you could probably pull from that 20,000. So you have 20,000 currently for your legal fees, is that correct?
Correct.
And then you have 20,000 part-time.
Correct.
I would have to check on the 20,000 for consulting. We may be able to pull some from hours.
Okay.
From that.
Okay. Well,
50,000 that you told.
somebody mentioned that she was gonna work on writing some of the ordinances.
But what you gotta remember is you are gonna have fees from Roger.
That's
for
where I
his
was.
Station review.
Yeah.
So I would not touch that consulting fee line item.
Okay.
So currently, your 20,000 that you have set aside for your legal, isn't even gonna cover even. Currently.
That's correct.
But if I have correctly, $42,000 this
Right.
pro bono to the APC.
That's correct. And we still have, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ordinances that we're supposed to be looking at, and have a lot of work to do on, and they're not done yet. So 300 hours, I think is, so I think that's, causing the discussion, and then the other side of the discussion that I understand the financial side, but then having a county attorney and then having an attorney for the area planning commission. You guys, as I understand, have, as you just stated, you have, Attorney Harder on some sort of contract and dealing with issues. Maybe that's the wrong term. So you have an agreement with her of some sorts for that, which would be separate from this, which would not charge our line item.
Tell you that with Ethan, we kind of decided that if there were instances that we really didn't need his presence at our meeting, we would obviously let him know so he can carry on with his day. There are going to be times that where we don't need to go representation at our meeting. Now that's going to be different for an agency, and it's your call. So
Correct. Other questions? Mr. McKee, you have any questions? So we have a attorney before us on that. I think one of the things I want to reiterate is having the ability of the spread of the having an attorney to be able to be the APC attorney and for that. But then Ethan also remains as the county attorney. And as I understand, we can also refer to him if we need to as the county attorney. But he's also there would be multiplicity of counsel on that. So looking at this,
Here's another question.
absolutely.
Okay, I don't know how lawyer things work at all. So if you and your partner, Mr. David, are both how often would it be that you're both working on something for us?
So in bigger firms, usually they stay a partner and associate on all everything, but for our purposes, I wouldn't bring him in unless I needed a second. To advise on something that was unavailable, so we wouldn't need to go.
Okay, I was just making sure that we were thinking about the right dollar amount per hour, because if we're talking between $350 an hour for one attorney versus $700 for two attorneys, that's a big difference. Okay. What experience does David have with ordinances?
So David we're in Johnson County, and David is on he's on the city county council. So he is on various planning commission type boards and makes some decisions.
Any other questions? Got a motion to accept Michelle as a attorney for APC attorney.
Bold to do so, but if you want to shop around or talk about or whatever, you're not going to offend me. I mean, you need to find a good fit, probably. And I don't know what the urgency in finding someone is, but I would encourage you to shop around and find a good fit with whatever needs are, etc. And you can talk to me more outside of the purview of the meeting. I mean, you do what you think is best.
I'm concerned about entering into a contract with you without commitment from the council, the county council. Extra.
I would say that was, like to do, no offense, man.
No.
Do some research on this.
Absolutely. Motion to table by Jim, KW, seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0. Thank you so much.
And you have a great
Amazing.
she actually
No.
I think we have questions. We may have questions that come up.
That's something you guys can see if you can pay her to do for that. I got my son got arrested.
Oh, I'm just.
They're just watching your jobs.
I'm just pulling your leg.
I'm just part of reading over here, thank you.
Okay, he took me seriously.
All right, letter E, conflict of interest form. As we go into the next year of, conflict of interest that we may have, things come up. I know we're gonna be covering a multitude of different, areas, on that. As we come up with subdivisions, solar revisions, drainage, those were the top three that we discussed last, month. Driveway, flood hazard, as we consider, conflict of interest on that. As we have conflict of interest, in looking over the Indiana code, what we are held to, as the APC, membership of commission, IC 36-7, so IC 36-7-4-223, membership commission, conflict of interest. This section does not apply to the preparation and the adoption of a comprehensive plan, so you don't have underneath that, which we are not discussing this evening or at this time. Member of the planning commission or legislative body is disqualified, may not participate as a member of the planning commission or legislative body in a hearing or recommendation of that commission or body concerning a legislative act as described in section 1016 of this chapter, in which the member has a direct or indirect financial interest. Commissioner shall enter in its records the fact that its member has such a disqualification. A member of the planning commission is disqualified and may not participate in a hearing of that commission concerning a zoning decision, which would be zoning ordinances that we would be discussing, or such matters as described in section 1016 of this chapter. If number one, the member is biased or prejudiced or otherwise unable to be impartial, or two, the member has a direct or indirect financial interest in the outcome of the zoning decision. D, the planning commission shall enter in the plans commission records the fact, number one, the fact that a regular member has a disqualification under subsection C, and the name, and two, the name of the alternate member, if any, who participates in the hearing in place of the regular member. A member of the planning commission of the legislative body may not directly or personally represent another person in a hearing before that commission or body concerning a zoning decision or a legislative act. At letter F, a member of a planning commission may not receive any mileage or compensation under section 222.5 of this chapter for attendance at a meeting if the member is disqualified under this section from participating in the entire meeting. That's what we are held to as APC members. Any conflict of interest that any of the members believe they may or may not have. So everyone believes, am I hearing correctly, everyone believes they don't have a conflict of interest? Directly or indirectly financial towards any of the issues, especially this evening as we are discussing solar this evening. Your name, ma'am? Vicky Covey. Okay. On conflict of interest, yes, ma'am. You can go here. Oh, thank you. You have copies for everybody?
No, just have this one, he's been, that's all right. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading the, pardon my voice, I'm going through email, so Jason
had to work, so we couldn't read this.
You have the microphone, is there a way for that, does that microphone work? Is there a button for turning it on? Okay, there we go.
Now can you hear me? No, there.
Much better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry, chemo voice. Anyway, he had to work, so he couldn't read. This is the one day a week, that's my bad day, but I felt like this was valid and needed read. So don't shoot the messenger, but this is what I'm gonna read. So he wrote, Dear Advisory Planning Chairman, I'm not able to attend due to my work schedule, but I have information that I believe needs to be put on the record at the Planning Commission meeting before any discussion or vote is done on solar. Says I'm concerned about the APC members having a conflict of interest with solar, therefore should not be allowed to participate in any discussions or vote for solar. During the public records request for solar permits on Ranger and Dolphin, it was found that 2 board members had signed agreements with solar representatives that were included in the permits. I've attached both for your review. The first member is Jake McGraw. He signed a solar lease agreement on April 29, 2022. He was later appointed to the APC 2023. The McGraw family has a total of 796 acres of farmland. 720 acres of that is leased to Dolphin Solar. The second member is Campbell White. He signed a consent with authorization with the Crossroads Solar, aka Ranger, 9921. He became a member of the Planning Commission January 24. In the past Planning Commission meeting on May 14, 2023, he was asked if he had any land that was tied to solar. He responded no, but his family is only selling land. On 9/11/24, the property on the signed consent was sold to Desi Crossroads Solar for $1.9 million at $15,122 an acre. The White family owns a total of 420 acres of other farmland that could be leased or later sold to any solar company in the future and could net them another $6,347,149 as financial gains through real estate transactions. For these reasons, I would like to ask the board to make a decision if both these individuals have a bias or conflict of interest when it comes to solar. Okay. That's me as well.
Thank you, ma'am. I've got a copy of that being made, a copy of it being made. Give us 1 second on that. Can I get that copy, ma'am? I'll wait till we get a copy of all this so we can all be knowing what we're discussing on that. Have some documents on it. I believe they're almost done. Give me 1 second.
The,
Conflict of interest.
I don't, but I'd be happy to sign it.
We can get those. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Down there, we can't hear
They're looking, she asked, her question was on the budget, why is 10,000 series, separated from 30,000 series? She was looking at the budget. It goes, administrative records and part-time, and it's totaled, and then that's under 10,000. And then the other is, delineated in that postage and on those.
I was just asking because I don't.
Believe those documents should be here shortly, I apologize. Say it one more time. Yes, it is. I'd like to get the commission to get, or the council to get us a faster printer.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you.
What was your name again, ma'am? I'm sorry. VICKI Kilby, KILBY. All time to read, look over this. Comment, questions? I guess one question that I have, I guess, in looking at this and what we're held to of, that we would have to consider is this, direct or indirect is one of the questions that we would have to discuss on that. I guess first question, and I don't mean this in any, is this, Mr. McGraw, is this you? Or is there another Mr. McGraw?
It's family, yes, parents.
So this is the agreement that you entered into for a solar.
Yes. Previous ordinance.
Okay. And then Mr. White, is Kipling Campbell White you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me ask, why are you looking at this, John? Because this is clearly not a conflict of interest.
I guess I don't understand. That's not what we're here for, folks. I understand we have emotions, we all have them. But that's not what we're here for. I mean, we're having a discussion. I said last time that we were gonna have an actual discussion. We're literally gonna have a discussion. There's time for you to speak. I promise you, everyone will get a chance to speak. But I also asked is that you guys have the decorum when we're speaking. So I've got 10 kids. Let me do it this way. I'll do it nice this time. This is when you're not talking. This is when we're talking. After this, that's the one warning. You catch it? Okay, thank you. Your question, Mr. Camp, Mr. White.
Stuff that is done before board members or commission members are on this can't possibly be a conflict of interest. That's not the way it works. The only thing that we did last year, when you read the statute, by definition, any work on a APC, or the comprehensive plan cannot be a conflict of interest.
That's correct.
Yeah. And then the only other thing we did was to do the solar moratorium, which if it was a conflict of interest, which in these cases it was not, it would have been against our interest. So none of this is a conflict of interest. If there's something going on now that this board has something to do with, then it would be a conflict of interest, and the statute lays out for, specific things when somebody would need to abstain from voting. Even if there is a conflict of interest, it does not prevent somebody from being on the APC. But when stuff is done.
That was not my statement. You said.
No, I'm explaining what a conflict of interest is here, because everything that's in this that Jason Brothers says, in this case, it's not a conflict of interest, and it's really that simple.
Okay. I hear your opinion. Other comments?
Can we guarantee that any other farmland in your family is not being negotiated or enter into any contracts or sales?
Depends on how you find a family, if I have a lot of family members. Yeah.
It has to be direct.
But
And at which financial factor.
I can tell you that there's nothing, because there's a reason we sold it as opposed to entering into a contract.
And Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we voted for the moratorium, you had chosen to abstain, right?
Yes, which I
Yes.
didn't have to, but I did.
Right, right.
Point that I voted for it, and I regret it. Because it didn't affect anything, of course, again. I'm not involved ongoing anyway. Whether it's security or
So the Dedrick Crossroads Land Holding Company, are you familiar with such company at 575 Fifth Avenue, 24th floor, New York, 10017?
No,
You sold property to them,
that's right.
so you have a connection with them.
No.
Yes, I'm confused. Direct or indirect, did they pay money in order to buy that from you?
John? I know you're having fun with this, but
I'm having fun with what? I'm trying to get, read Title 36, 7, 4, 223.
what are you talking about?
I'm looking at a code, you're saying I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, what is your definition of fun, Mr.
Had
White?
anything to do with this?
What is your definition of fun?
No.
You just accused me of having fun in an open meeting, I've got it on camera.
Tell me why you think this is a conflict of interest.
Do you know Desiree Landholdings?
No, I have no idea who they are. That's who we sold the land to.
Okay, do you know what the company does?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, the company, according to their website, says they're involved in solar energy.
I would assume so.
Okay, that sounds like an indirect financial interest. You made money.
Okay, not while I was on the board. That's the problem. The stuff that was done under the old ordinance, before anything here, I could enter into a lease with a brand new solar company today while I'm on the board, still not have a conflict of interest as long as I don't participate in anything that would affect that solar. And the statute is set up that way because every single person here at some point can be accused of having a conflict of interest, because what zoning does is gives property rights to some people and takes them away to other people. Every single person is affected. That's the reason it's set up this way.
So you sold property to a company that states that they're involved in solar, they now own property near the solar project, I believe, that is known as Ranger. I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a question or a statement.
So a solar company owns property near the solar project that is happening in Fountain County.
Yeah.
Money traded hands from them to you, I would assume, in the selling of this, correct?
Yes.
I believe that would be possibly considered an indirect financial interest in the outcome of zoning.
It's not the way statutes work, Don. I'm sorry. If it was happening now, you are absolutely 100% correct. When it happens in the past and it's nothing we're dealing with now, it does not. It is that simple.
But we're about to enter into talking about solar.
That's right. That project is done. If whatever we do affects the possibility of that project with what we do here, I would abstain from it, because that would be a conflict of interest. But nothing that we do here can possibly affect the land that I sold, whatever it was.
Other questions we have? So, Mr. McGraw, you have a solar ground lease agreement inside of what's considered Dolphin Solar. That's the one by Attica, correct?
Yep.
So that's been agreed to. There's I believe it's called a conditional permit or something like that.
Yeah.
That's been issued.
Yes, it's under the ordinance. Fact.
So as we discuss solar, it would be indirect or direct financial interest of having money has changed. So now we're now here. I guess I'm Guess the question. Okay, go ahead.
This might help, if I think. Where this possibly headed. If we skip to line item F, this may clarify. Possibly why we're having this conversation now.
If we skip to line item F, it would clear up the conversation.
Yes.
Okay. So if we move to line item F, on that, Dolphin Solar has a temporary, conditional provisional, permit with the county of Fountain and has been given by our zoning administrator, technical questions that have been, heretofore not submitted in a timely manner. So as we enter into talking about Dolphin Solar, you're believing that these things help clear things up on that. I believe I see what you're saying. So entering into line item F, in order to talk about Dolphin Solar, we have solar that we will be talking about, which would be concerning to the solar ground lease agreement for this. So that is letter F. So as we're discussing Dolphin Solar and the permit from for Dolphin Solar, as I'm understanding, is that would be affecting the land use agreement that you would have, Mr. McGraw.
Yes, going to talk about that, but as far as I knew, all that was behind us and going forward, we were talking about the new one, it's not business.
So in that, so as we enter in, it would be then be the member of planning commission is disqualified, may not participate in the hearing of that commission concerning a zoning decision. The zoning decision would be based out of Fountain County zoning ordinance adopted October 21st, 2019, amended July 19th, 2021, recorded with the Fountain County recorder on that. So as we enter into that, you would have to be recused from that and not a member up on of the board from that in the discussion. Okay.
Yes. Nor have I been.
Say that again.
Nor have I been in the past.
I understand. I'm just as we go
Clarify.
as we go forward. Yes. So then, while we're going through letter F, if you can excuse yourself from being up on the board, and you can have a seat with in that, or you can, if you wish, to step outside or whatever. But you know, right now you have to disqualify. So
Letter F now.
we will be beginning letter F. Yes, we'll be going to letter F. Well, hang on, Mr. McGraw. Hang on one second. I apologize. So we will be discussing that. So let's back up from going to letter F for a second, because we have to go to the question. We have to make a decision as a board. Is the other portion of it? So you have a discussion in this on this. So I apologize. I'm sorry. Is it in the consideration of the planning commission pursuant to IC 3674-223? Is this disqualification for another one of our members that this is considered bias, prejudice, or these two things? number one, under C, bias, prejudice, or otherwise unable to be impartial, or two, the member has a direct or indirect financial interest in the outcome of the decision. So we'd have to discuss that, but that's where we'll be going. So we explained the part on that. Does that answer the question?
Yes. So, in my opinion, this would exclude the talking of the permit for Dolphin. Right?
Yes.
Would include Mr. Brill, but would exclude Mr. White, because Mr. White does not have a vested interest in that particular.
So it would exclude, Mr. McGraw could not.
The conflict would include Mr. McGraw.
Yes.
And exclude Mr. White, because Mr. Campbell does not have direct vested interest in that quote unquote project.
What is being made very not clear here is that the conflict of interest, so when we make decisions, I mean, all of the discussions, all of that sort of stuff, like on the comprehensive plan, all the discussions on, random ordinances. That has nothing to do with it. When the APC makes a decision, for example, rezoning, and actually, there's quite a bit more here on the conflict of interest, John, if you didn't agree. But
Which section is that?
It's all referenced, it's all over the place. But there's, the comprehensive plan is one thing, it just says nobody has a conflict of interest because that's the way it is. There are other things that says the same sort of thing. But when there is a specific decision here that has to be made that would affect somebody on the board, that's when the conflict of interest arises. So if KW wants to build something next to his house, and he has to come here to do it, he has a conflict of interest because that is his stuff that he is doing.
That's correct. I think to stop beating around the bush, to be frank, Dolphin Solar has been asked technical questions about their solar program, and they have defaulted on the timeline in which they've had to respond. Therefore, could possibly have grounds to vote to pull their permit on their bill, because they have defaulted on the timeline in which they were given to respond to their technical questions. So what?
In that case, Jacob is gonna have nothing to do with that.
That's why I said, let's skip to step F. This might clarify a lot.
Well, why did we not have that in the agenda? So we didn't have to beat around the bush in the previous E.
The solar permit that we're discussing. So then is it a conflict of interest in the opinion of the commission that we have, because we're supposed to enter into according to IC 3674-223, is this a conflict of interest?
Statute says if there's a conflict of interest, the member abstains, and then it is noted in the in the minutes.
That is correct.
For example, next month we've got a rezoning petition, I think. Amber, is that what it is that's come up? And Mountain Trust Company got one of the notices. I haven't looked at it. I don't know if we own land next to it or close to it, or if it's a trustee or something. I'm gonna have nothing to do with it. I'll get no pecuniary gain from it because I don't even know what it is. But because the company where I work, you guys all know that I help manage, apparently has an ownership interest in this. I'm not gonna have anything to do with that rezoning petition. I'm gonna abstain from it. We're gonna put it in the minutes. And we're gonna lay out them. So proper thing, if there's something to do on Dolphin tonight, Jake will abstain. won't comment, won't have anything to do with it. No need for him to step out, like he did, but he once. But he's not gonna have anything to do with it, and then it's gonna be noted in the minutes, the reason why. And the reason is because he's got a contractual interest in that farm, so he's got basically money writing on whether any decision here tonight would affect him one way or another.
That's the way I see it.
Other comments? Before we go to F.
Well. My wife likes to say, let's have an airing of grievances. Amber resigned from doing administrative work for a conflict of interest when she wasn't even on the board. So what was that conflict then?
My conflict was that I didn't agree with not having protections for adjoining landowners, the way that it was permitted to come in. I sat for a year, listened to the public come in, ask for a change, and it was met with basically that they weren't going to change anything. So in order for me to step out and do what's right, because my opinion as a government employee, if I see something, I say something. If I don't agree with it and what I'm seeing in the back room, when there's discussion and comment that's not what's being told to the public, I have a right
Absolutely.
to disagree with it. So either I continued my position and sat up here and kept my mouth shut, or I aired my grievances that something was changed. That's the only reason I did that.
So why do you call it a conflict of interest since it's actually not a conflict of interest?
It would have been a conflict of interest because me coming out and saying what I think or believed or thought was met with, we're gonna get you. We're gonna get you fired. Because I believed that the adjoining landowners should have rights as well as the landowners that are participating.
So you don't think you have a conflict of interest now? And to be clear,
I don't have a conflict.
I don't think you ever had a conflict of interest.
Well, I want to do what I feel's right. Okay. I'm not against development for this county. I'm not against solar for this county. But if he's gonna have a right to do what he wants, the person next to him has a right that their property is not devalued. They have just as much right as he does. And I think the county has taken good steps here recently on putting in things in the ordinance to protect the landowners, to protect the county's interests, to protect the county's resources. The one thing it's lacking is protecting the adjacent landowners. That's all I want. So if I'm gonna get vocal and I'm going to say what I think to everybody, I'm not gonna do it sitting up here keeping my mouth shut because I can't say anything. That's why. Nothing against this board. It's nothing against the county.
I only bring it up because you resigned for a conflict of interest, and I have never been able to
Well,
find a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest for my ethics. I think it's unethical for me to sit here when I know that there's problems and people come and bring grievances. I mean, you're a lawyer, you know, I'm not here to protect the county's interest because the public put it in a way that's not legal. I'm not a lawyer. I'm all about doing what's right. That's it.
I think we can talk about this issue. Until we decide on attorney in a legal opinion. I don't think we can come to a conclusion on conflict of interest, and if everybody signs this conflict of interest statement and outlines their particular conflict of interest that they have in a particular issue with so county zoning, that's in their documents. And when it comes to those issues, they have recused themselves from voting on those issues. and they don't. They sign a document that says they don't have conflict of interest, and if they do participate, then they'll have to be litigated. I don't know, we need to take him as an attorney, I'm not speaking as an attorney. But if they state that they don't have a conflict of interest and participate.
That's putting themselves at risk.
That's just my. And I think we have legal counsel and I apologize. You're not participating as legal counsel, because we have legal counsel kind of help us come to this conclusion. I think.
Well, I discussed with Ethan, he said the best practice is if it smells fishy, was his words, he said then you stay away from it, conflict of interest. So you have to determine if, does it smell fishy?
If we were on the issue that anybody here on the planning commission is participating in, and it's planning commission taking the vote on that, they have a conflict of interest to have they have a right, they should recuse themselves on that particular vote.
That's good. Now, in discussion up to the last hour and 8 minutes, we've led up to this. There's been a lot of talk, but the brass tacks that comes down to it, we moved down to this letter F, and we discussed this permanent issue, why it's being discussed, and decided to take it to a vote. And that would then recuse, and I believe Mr. McGraw would recuse himself.
Absolutely.
Of that vote. Now,
But he can't participate in any of the discussion because it deals with him. He has a direct.
That's correct. That's correct. And Mr. White's testimony, he didn't participate in the discussion. He has sold land to solar companies, but he has no interest in this particular project.
In that program.
Now, when it comes to the point extension, stuff like that.
Any other questions over E? And then we'll go to F. There's no more questions over E. All right, we'll go into F, Mr. McGraw. You can excuse yourself, please.
As long as you're not participating in the conversation.
Long as you move it, I'm just sit here up and sides.
Each one of us on this group will have a similar situation and all do the same, respecting for doing that.
But in not participating in the hearing, he's not a member of the board at this moment.
That's not right, John.
Of as far as he doesn't, so if this was the meeting.
He's a sitting member.
He's a sitting member that
He's a sitting member of this board and will be a sitting member of this board. He is.
Correct. But maybe not participate. What is the definition of participate?
He's sitting off to the side. He's not going to do discussion. He's not going to vote. He's not going to do anything. He's going to exclude himself off the side. And we will participate.
For this agenda.
For this agenda item.
Proceed.
So we'll go to letter F, which would be about the Dolphin Solar. Dolphin Solar was given a temporary permit or a conditional permit and has not submitted in the required 60 days according to 9-9.06 CSES permit of our ordinance, page number 37. Prior to constructing a CSES, an application for the permit, the CSES permit must be filed with the zoning administrator. On down towards the end, if the application is not complete, the applicant must provide to the zoning administrator the supplemental information within 60 days. If the applicant fails to provide the supplemental material for the application in a timely manner, the application will be dismissed. after talking with Ethan, he said it could be summarily dismissed because they have not, and it does allow that, but I wanted to bring it and have a discussion on this because it's well over the 60 days for that, and it has not, there's been no communication. Mr. Azar, the zoning administrator, used the term radio silence on it. It's just hanging out there on that. So we have a permit that is the rule as of page number 37 and 38. They are not keeping their end of what is written down pursuant to that is where we are at rules.
When was the 60 days on?
60 days, I had it, and I was trying to pull that up on that. It was right near Thanksgiving is when we submitted, and there was another letter that came out like December the 28th to that. I was trying to pull that up. To Dolphin, restating to them, here are the technical questions that they had because there was incomplete information. Mr. Azar needed supplemental information that was out there, and he has contacted them.
When was the last time you spoke to Roger about if he has heard from them?
I spoke with him last week, I believe it was on Friday.
Okay, and he had not heard.
And he has not heard from him. I told him he is out of the country right now.
Yeah.
And I had asked him, I said, well, if you can you please communicate with me? If there's an update from them, I mean, can you continue contact with him about other permits or other questions on that? And he said that he would, and I have not received such from him. I'm not just trying to scroll my phone, I'm trying to find that actual document, give you exact dates on that. Other questions, other comments? Where we're at on this?
Yeah, this is the whole. So this
Fine, I was saying.
Six, the last instance, stating that application not complete, applicant must provide the zoning administrator with supplemental information for 60 days. If the applicant fails to provide supplemental information material, for the application in a timely manner, the application will be dismissed. And I would agree with that last sentence. What I discussed on the program, it would make a recommendation to the commission to dismiss the program.
Any other questions? Comments?
I think we've been very generous.
December 27th, December 27th. Mr. Azar noted to them, you have a conditional permit. This serves as the conditional permit. So from the last time of communication being December 27th, the original prior to constructing in the letter, in addition, prior to constructing the CSES, all technical comments provided to you on November 8th. There was a letter that went to them. Say that one more time.
Well, I see what's going on here. I didn't know anything about it because it just on the agenda. I'm actually going to step outside on this one. I have nothing to do with this. Since I'm an attorney, I don't want to be close to it. Okay. So I would appreciate it if somebody would come and get me once this part's done, you better take the vote. All right.
So November 8th is the first one that they got according to this letter. It was provided, he provided technical comments were provided to them for them to start answering. So November 8th to today, I didn't calculate exactly the number of days, but we're well beyond the 60. I can pull that up.
You know what date that Dolphin submitted application for it was 6 days from that meeting?
No, it should be 60 days from when Roger sent them the notice that he needed supplemental information. That's when the 60 days should start. So if Roger reached out to him on November 8th to tell him that they needed to supply additional information, I would think the 60 days would start on November 8th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he has to read within 15 days of receipt of an application. He has to determine if and he wrote to them.
Even if it pushed back to December 27th, 60 days would have been 2 days ago. The 25th of February, so the first still pushed it to the latest date that Roger had direct contact with.
The comment. So we're
This doesn't specify between business days and calendar days.
that is correct, according to what Mr. What Ethan told me. He said it says 60 days. But even in consideration of that, so it's 112 days minus 1 is week. So let me get that. So it's 111 days. Is how many days they've had in their possession. So we are 9 into almost double that.
Just so it's on record for having the discussion, it may open us up as a county to litigation and some kind of appeal lawsuit.
Statute. This is our whole.
Right.
So that was a discussion I had with Ethan on that, and he said that was one of his suggestions was, that's why he stated, well, it says the application will be dismissed. It doesn't prescribe a manner. I like doing things, let's have the discussion. We have it on camera. We have it, it's not.
That would be my.
And that I believe is part, I don't know. So we will make that and then we will work through the process. Yes, sir. Other questions on it?
Do we know if Ethan is willing to represent, if a lawsuit was filed, would it be against the commissioners? Would it be against the county council? Would it be against the APC? Because right now the APC does not typically.
I would imagine we.
It'll go to the county attorney, I don't understand.
Okay. Just making sure that we're not leaving ourselves exposed as an APC.
Other discussion.
I make the motion to. You already made the motion?
Well, I will make it, see this worded the way the, planning commission would like it. I'm going to motion that the planning commission was the recommendation commissioner. Let's do this, let's see. Is it provisional application, so it is.
Yeah,
Provisional provision. Yeah.
Provisional.
According to the letter dated December 27th, 2024, conditional commercial solar energy system permit was the term that Mr. Azar used.
So just to make a recommendation, planning commission makes a recommendation to dismiss the issued by
we have to dismiss the application.
But hang on, we can't have a discussion. We have a motion. We have to have a second. You're okay. No worries. Conditional permit, yes, ma'am.
Based on the knowledge that.
9.06 is a dismissal. The application will be dismissed.
They're just dismissing the application.
Yes.
Is her provisional still in play?
the conditional. The conditional permit would be, and their application both would be dismissed. Yes.
Yes.
And
Says dismissed.
so let's,
But it
so,
says application dismissed, so I think your motion needs to include application and provisional permanent. Yes, please. Thank you.
You got it.
Application.
Application
Provision.
and provision. For provisional permit,
Provisional permit.
so in the wording of it, I am unsure, and we would have to get, because Roger makes the, issues the permit. We have, so I don't know, is it to the commissioners? I'm not disagreeing, but the process to dismiss the permit, the conditional permit, the application,
The commissioners don't have to take it as a block.
and that's fine, I'm just making sure that we have on all ends of whatever that is, that process is, I'm
Chain of command, that's how I would see it.
I'm not being disagreeable on it, yes. But if because of us, we are also voting because he works for the, he's the zoning administrator for us.
Got all that in there?
Can you try to read that, and then we'll get a second on it.
Recommendation to the commissioners to dismiss the application and conditional provisional permit issued to Dolphin Solar.
Would be, this was written to Greenex Solar LLC. Yeah. Gnex? Oh. It must be a typo on his letter. Gnex.
I think it's gonna have to stay.
Commissioners and zoning administrator.
Because
That covers.
our law, the law, says so administrator.
Feel like that covers.
That mentions law to take it.
And agreed, to loop all of it in. Yes, sir. Did you get all that?
So Jim McKee's made a motion to recommend to the commissioners and zoning administrator to dismiss the application and conditional provisional permit issued to Gnex Solar LLC.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Jim makes the motion. Amber seconds. Any discussion over that? Now that we got the word, you had some discussion you wanted on. Or did we cover that? Okay.
Yeah, if you don't do something. And then there's nothing in observing the ordinance where it says. Okay, they don't submit, permit. Information for permit. If we just go on and. And go for a minute.
I mean, they can reapply.
Yeah.
Right. It'd be great to get them protections to joining landowners, so. And, it's nice for.
Any other discussions over this motion with the second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 5. We have 2 abstentions.
That work with quorum, since we only have 5 people voting.
We've got to have 5.
We have to have 5, we have a
Okay,
majority, so
okay.
we have the 5.
Just making sure.
For Campbell. So if you can notate Campbell, and Jake, abstained. In the minutes. Okay. All right, so you can let Campbell let Campbell know. All right, letter G, public hearing on solar extension for moratorium. Thank you, ma'am. Entering into the public hearing at 7:27 PM. Got more papers on top here than I want to do with. So the moratorium, as we were going to be discussing, we'll be having public comment here, here in just a moment, on it. What we are doing, the Advisory Planning Commission is certifying the proposed text to the Fountain County Board of Commissioners. It cites 9.06 from which we just read just a moment ago on that, and provides a moratorium here is hereby imposed on the filing and acceptance of any new application permits under this article. And this moratorium will commence on June 3rd. This is an extension of the one that we had in place, and will end on December 30th, 2026, as it is written in this. All right. Yes. Anybody else for the plan? No. So as we do this, let me reiterate the decorum that we will have in this. You address the chair. You don't have to use all the Mr. Chair, President Chair, whatever on that. But we will keep a very high decorum level. You're here to speak to this issue. Remember that we're not looking for a long speech on it. You start wandering, I will say you're wandering on it, get to the point on it. You start accusing some of the board members. We're addressing them. I will call you out on that, and we will end that really quickly. You're here for public comment on the solar extension. I'm going to be terrible with names. I apologize up front. Suzanne Jenkins, do you wish to speak? Nope. Mr. D. Jenkins, do you wish to speak? Sandy Siebert, I believe I got that correct. Sandy Siebert. Christine Bruner. Yes, ma'am. Can you say your name for the camera and for the record? And yes, ma'am. You can hold up the microphone. I don't know. There it is. It's on now.
Well, I'm here tonight to encourage you to extend the solar moratorium. Why? Because I have downloaded the draft and took time to read it, and I have a few concerns considered and some things I hope that each of you will take into consideration. My biggest concern is about setbacks. In particular, the distance from a property line if adjoining property has a residence, and it's on page 9. It's the third one down. And I noticed that it was improved to 1,000 feet. I think it was 200 feet in the old one. It's 1,000 feet. And I just want to remind you, that's not quite 1/5 of a mile. So I did a little bit of research, found an article from USA Today. Do solar farms hurt property values? Most Americans don't have anything to worry about. Study finds. Notice it says most Americans. It doesn't say all Americans. So just to highlight it, the researchers looked at over 1.8 million property transactions that occurred within 6 years before and after a utility scale solar installation was constructed in 6 states, and the 6 states they studied were California, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Researchers found the area where a solar installation is built has an enormous impact on whether it affects nearby home prices. Homes in rural and agricultural areas, I think that defines us, saw declines in home prices, especially where solar farms were replacing agricultural land. The researchers found that homes within a quarter of a mile of some utility scale solar farms saw average property values decline 2.3%, but there were no effects on homes more than a mile away. They did break it down. On average, only homes within a mile of solar farm saw any change in property value. Closer than a quarter of a mile, that's 1,320 feet. Right now, you have 1,000 feet written in it. 2.3% decrease. A quarter of a mile to a half a mile, 1.5% decrease. And a half a mile to a mile, 0.8% decrease. They also ended the article with a way to mitigate the effects of home prices. The study didn't look specifically at homeowners, might be protected from possible loss of value in their homes, but did note that there are some tools to use can be used by solar developers. You have one in the new ordinance, might have been in the old ordinance, and had to do with putting landscape measures around the perimeter of the solar farm. But this one's not on there, and I thought it sounded pretty good. Include compensation to nearby affected homeowners. I like that. So I would hope that you would consider that. Mr. Chairman, I do have a copy of this article if you're interested in it. My second concern is I looked high and low. I would like to see a cap put on the amount of Fountain County farmland that can be placed into commercial solar farms. Why? Well, the environmental impact. I think we really don't know the environmental impact. I don't think they've been around long enough. And the destabilization of the local economy here in Fountain County. We have tiny sort of chemicals, fertilizer dealers, waterways, tiling. You know, I think it would affect the economy of this county. But the major impact to me is that agricultural land is generally not considered a renewable resource. And when you look east to see what is going on with the construction of the one that's going in now, you have an opportunity to drive deep into it and take a look. It's very concerning. And I know in the updated one, where it talks about decommissioning plan, it says a final restoration may include revegetation as pasture. That's may, not will. Returning the site to agricultural use, or returning the site as close as possible to its pre-construction condition. I don't know that that's possible east of here. So those are the things that I was concerned about. So in conclusion, just to restate the 2 areas that I would like to see reworked in the solar ordinance: distance from property line of adjoining property if it has a residence, 1 mile, and a cap on the amount of Fountain County farmland that can be turned into commercial solar farm, keeping in mind that agricultural land is not considered to be a renewable resource. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Jeff Fisher. Carol Freeze. Todd Haig. Kelly Carlson.
Probably do for the recording. No, that's not
Use the microphone, man.
Concern is, I know.
Can you use the microphone?
And the.
Okay. Just don't ask me to sing. My only concern is, I think currently right now on the decommissioning, they have to have a bond. Am I correct in asking that question and that answer? Is
Off
anyone?
the top of my head, I'd have to look at it.
Asking this.
Yes, the decommissioning bond.
Let's look at that. We'll get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
Okay, because if it's a bond, who's gonna be responsible for that? And is an escrow account a better choice than a bond? That's something you might wanna look into. That is my only concerns at this time. Thank you.
Jeff T. Scott. Clint Kilby.
Clint Kilby from Wabash Township. I want to talk about the zoning ordinance administrator and some conflicts of interest there.
Say that again.
Ordinance administrator, I had paralysis on my face.
Oh, no worries. What we're discussing right now is we're in the middle of the solar
That doesn't affect it.
moratorium. Right now, we've got to discuss that, but you have about, let me write this down. City zoning administrator?
Yes.
Okay. And that we will have to discuss after this. Because this is for solar moratorium, is what we're doing in the public hearing on that. Sue Sperlin? You state your name and you turn it on. You think there's a little button, I guess, on there. There we go.
I'm sorry. Sue Sperlin from Shawnee Township, and I just want to say that I'm in favor of extending the moratorium on those solar farms.
Okay.
Thank you.
From Van Buren Township, Pat? No. No? Thank you. Clark Ponder? Bruce Martin?
We ask a question here. Because what you did tonight by canceling the permit, or is this still going to be an ongoing thing where other solar companies can reapply? And because I didn't know anything about anything until I got this letter this week that I must be adjoining property owner to whoever is wanting to put 13.9 acres of solar farm. So
What letter did you receive? Is that for the rezoning? Is that the one that came out for the rezoning that we were hearing on March 27th?
yes, it said a notice for hearing. Notice for hearing for tonight, and that there was a certain property, it was 13.968 acres, and it gave the county location, which the only thing I was able to determine was that it's on north of my County Road 100 north and west of 41, but.
I'll bring it back to you so that everybody can hear me. So this is the notice for public hearing for rezoning for March 27th. We have a hearing for us next month.
Same, oh, am I in the wrong month?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
so this is February 27th to March 27th fall on the same Thursday.
Okay,
So this is for next month, we are considering rezoning that property for, a business that is wanting to come in there, on that.
so that's not a solar farm thing?
If this is the same one, this is, not a solar. This is a vac truck, if I'm not mistaken. It'll be rezoning it from ag to commercial, we would be considering that. It's not a solar consideration.
They're back.
Yeah, I guess I apologize,
Oh, no worries.
I didn't get the month correctly, I guess, or the wife didn't want.
So we will have a public comment period for that. March 27th, 6 p.m. for that. But if it's the one that if it's the one I'm aware of, that was a upfitting of a vacuum truck company.
All right, well, I mean, I didn't know they used up 13.9 acres to put in a company, that's my concern, and, I don't,
Let's rezone the whole parcel.
Yeah, it's rezoning the parcel, and we will be discussing that next.
okay, all right,
Come back next month and.
thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, sir. Larry Schrock.
I just want to speak in favor of a moratorium. We need to get this right.
Hold closer.
We need to get this right. It's going to take some time to go through some of this, and we need to get it right. We had issues because of a 3-page, and I've read the 11, 12 page. Forget it, but I read it, and there's things that we need to work on. So I would like to be asking you that you would consider the moratorium.
Carol Owens. He's already left. Dee Bentley. Audrey Keller. Vicky Kilby. Derek May.
Derek May. As a citizen of Fountain County, I simply would like to express my support in a motion decision, however the discussion goes, to extend the moratorium to ensure that there is ample time to make sure that there is language in there that protects all that live here in this county. Thank you.
Oh boy, Phil Conder from Shawnee Township. Crowder. All right. I knew I was going to butcher. I apologize.
Your penmanship, though.
We'll have a public hearing on it later. Jody, yes, not at this time. What about Charlie? Palecki? He left, he said, okay. Dane Maltzberger. There we go. So you're speaking on the solar moratorium right now, right? Solar moratorium, you're the man.
Dave Maltzberger, Mill Creek Township. I think tonight is evident of why we need more time. And as somebody spoke out about driving out to the Ranger project and seeing how it's actually going in, I think until we witness one of these go in, we don't have enough information to know what questions are even a good question to ask. How much damage it's going to do? How can we remedy it? How can we try to put it back if we were going to put it back? And I think it also, even the language, we've got 11 pages now, and there's it's a working footprint, something for us to build off of and discuss and to get public input to really put together what's going to make Fountain County better. Not saying that we're not going to have any more solar development. But if we do, we might be a little smarter and a little wiser in how we put it together.
Thank you, sir. Jessica Anderson.
Oh, used to one of these. Okay, Jessica Anderson, Mill Creek Township. So last year I came to my first APC meeting for a completely unrelated issue. And I actually didn't even know solar was going on in the county at the time. And I've since earned myself a bit of a reputation as anti-solar from some work I did on social media. But I'm actually kind of impartial regarding solar. I just really like logic and the rule of law. And what bothered me was the speed at which such a huge transformational project had been able to get underway and the lack of transparency and just seeing how betrayed the neighbors felt. And, you know, we own property and we farm. And so I have strong opinions about landowner rights. But when you're in a county that has zoning, it's a community thing too. You know, it doesn't end there. And so in the current ordinance, which isn't really the previous solar ordinance, it's the current ordinance, which is under a moratorium. There is a provision there that I think would have helped a lot if it had not had a subtle waiver for all of these projects. So in the new solar draft, there's a whole section at the bottom regarding community engagement. But it's left up to the zoning administrator to work with the company to develop that community engagement plan, and there's not really like criteria for what that would look like. But I actually like what's already in the zoning ordinance that was adopted in 2020 that could deal with this lack of transparency, and that is the special exception. Wind is currently required to get their special exception approval before they proceed with any permitting in Fountain County. The body of citizen members, citizen appointees that manages that is the BZA, which Carol put me up to raising my hand for, so I'm on that body. If she was here, she'd probably elbow me now. But so that is the only authority that would be able to give that approval for a special exception. And I just want to read to you guys one of the provisions for that that's already in our documents. The granting of the special exception, this is on page 17 of the current ordinance if you want to read along. Part C. The granting of the special exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the other property in the immediate vicinity or substantially diminish or impair property values within that specific zoning district. And so, of course, if it's use and enjoyment, that's subjective, and so you would need a panel of people to decide. And when the BZA meets, they have to advertise that they're going to have a hearing, and so it's not that you want neighbors to be able to come in and forbid people from using their property the way that they need to for their families. But it does give an opportunity for everybody to be transparent, for the neighbors to have a voice, for the public to be made aware that big things are happening. And another thing that I really like about the special exception language is that the only one that can file for an exception is the real property owner. So that keeps these broad, permits from only having to hire their environmental department and legal department to handle it. And it just brings community members with other community members before community members to have a discussion. Right now, the reason that solar isn't subject to that, as far as I can tell, is because it's listed as an approved use for agricultural ground. Of course, wind is not listed as that use. And so Doug always asks me if I'm done with the feeling stage of an issue, if it's time to talk about solutions. Okay, so I'd like to propose 3 solutions. Number 1, to continue the moratorium, maybe even longer than 6 months, because it didn't really move very far in 1 year. We still have a long time to go. But to continue the moratorium until the new solar ordinance is adopted, but also to make sure that we're removing the pre-approval of commercial solar for agricultural ground. I know we're adding the agricultural overlay, but still, by removing that approval, you take out that citizen body, which is a check to consolidated power, and that's what I like. And add the same special exception requirement to the new solar ordinance that we already have for wind. And I could give you guys the page number if you need that, but you could kind of just swap in the word solar for wind and use that whole section. And then we get to use the full power of what we already have established in Fountain County, which isn't a lot, but it's something. And so I think we should just take that bypass out.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jessica, one thing I do want to, so the way that the moratorium language has been proposed, it's December 2026, not December 2025.
Oh, okay.
So we're talking like a year extra.
December 3.
Yes.
2026. Okay, so 18 months.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And that is to mirror what the county. Okay, perfect.
Anyone else that wishes to speak in the public comment time for the solar moratorium? Looks like we have one. Your name?
My name is Angie Burke, and I just wanted to echo what a lot of these people are saying and say that I support continuing the moratorium.
Thank you, ma'am. Any others? Seeing none, public comment is closed at 7:55 p.m. Questions, comments from the commission on the solar moratorium of extending through, as written here, December 30th, 2026. Fountain County Planning Commission certification of proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance. The Fountain County Advisory Planning Commission under Indiana Code 36-7-4-605 and 607 hereby certifies to the Fountain County Board of Commissioners proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance. The proposed text amendments are attached. The Planning Commission believes the proposed text amendments are consistent with Indiana Code 36-7-4-600 and otherwise comply with Indiana Code 36-7-4 and all other legal requirements. The Planning Commission held a properly noticed public hearing on the proposed text amendment on February 27, 2025, which was proposed that Article 9, Section 9.06 of the Fountain County zoning ordinance be amended as follows. 9.06 CSES permits. Prior to constructing a CSES, an application for a CSES permit must be filed with the zoning administrator by the property owners of the parcels within the proposed CSES or their authorized agent, including but not limited to the developer of the proposed CSES. The applicant must submit to the zoning administrator a conceptual site plan which includes the general footprint of the CSES, the approximate number of panels, the maximum generating capacity, the general location of all fences, electrical poles, and lines. the location of all other equipment and structures, the general location of all access roads and right of way, a general road use plan for construction, general specifications for equipment, compliance with all applicable industry standards and safety codes, and Federal Aviation Administration rules and regulations, collectively the CSES plan, quote unquote. Within 15 days of receipt of an application for a CSES permit, the zoning administrator will determine whether the application is complete. The zoning administrator will notify the applicant in writing of his determination. If the application is complete, the application will be reviewed by the zoning administrator as a request for a CSES permit, as provided for in Article 9. If the application is not complete, the applicant must provide to the zoning administrator the supplemental information within 60 days. If the applicant fails to provide the supplemental materials for the application in a timely manner, the application will be dismissed. Provided, however, a moratorium is hereby imposed on the filing and acceptance of any new application for permits under this article. And this moratorium will commence on June 3rd, 2025 and end on December 30, 2026. When considering the proposed text amendment, the Planning Commission paid reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan, current conditions, and the character of current structures and uses in each district. 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. 4, the conservation of property values throughout Fountain County. And 5, all other appropriate considerations promoting responsible development and growth. After proper consideration, a majority of the Planning Commission members voted to certify the proposed text amendments to the Board of Commissioners with a favorable recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation, or no recommendation. The vote was blank in favor of this recommendation, blank against this recommendation, and blank abstentions. Attested to by the Secretary, dated February 27th, 2025. This certification is made on February 27, 2025 by a majority of the Fountain County Advisory Planning Commission as follows. Signatures by the President, Vice President, members, etc. And they notate whether in favor or against this recommendation. And then it has the attached proposed text as it would be written as I just read with that provided included in.
The recommendation is to commence on June 3rd, 2025 and terminate on December 30, 2026. The termination date for December 30, 2026 coincides with the moratorium that the Fountain County Council imposed and providing for economic revitalization area and or any tax abatement. So that end date will coincide and with the current moratorium in place by the Fountain County Council.
Question I had on the, is it December 31 the council put through or December 30? 30th? Okay, I was making sure. Other questions, comments? Moratorium? Not seeing any others. You push to speak?
I want to point out that a lot of people said stuff takes time. We got this at, I believe, 1:45 today, when it was emailed to me at least. And I don't think it was actually written until today, because I asked for it, because I hadn't gotten it. And the way this is written, not an extension, it actually creates a loophole. So that the instant this goes in, there's a gap that we open up the old solar ordinance, because this replaces the existing language and it's not written right. So if this goes into effect, if I was an attorney for the solar farms that have a lot of stuff, I would file my application right away. And all of a sudden, we're back into the old ordinance that nobody likes. So I will not be approving this one as it stands. It's going to have to be rewritten. At least if the goal on this is to actually extend what we have.
if our goal is to extend what we have, how would you propose? the
I
language?
don't have the time to get it. Look at this at like 5:15. It's a little bit trickier than just throwing in some language.
Is there a microphone down there?
It's mine. When we amend the text, it replaces the old text. This is not written as an extension. This says the moratorium starts on June 3rd and goes to December 26th. We're in February. We've opened up a gap from whenever the commissioners approve this to June 3rd. At that point, we have no moratorium. And our existing ordinance that nobody likes is in full effect. And if you have all of these farms waiting to see what happens because they've got out there, that gives them every incentive to jump in, file their application, and we're done.
Are you saying it avoids the previous moratorium?
Yes, because this is an amendment that replaces it. That's the way it's worked, that's the way it's set up.
Instead of an amendment to the original.
It replaces it. This is an
Right.
amendment to the existing one, and it changes the dates, and we've created a donut hole.
So, just so that we're all on the same page, so that the problem is, you said if you were the attorney for the solar company, you would have permit application right away before the commissioners have their chance.
No, this does not go into effect until the commissioners approve it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
The instant they approve it, I file the application to file the solar farm.
However, the commissioners can amend and make recommendation for change on that.
They can, absolutely,
So-
but this board approves this tonight, then that happens, everybody's gonna be angry at this board. I think we ought to know what we're actually approving.
Just throwing it out there, would the board be open to tabling this for tonight? And then talking about it next month? We've heard everybody.
June.
Re-advertise it.
You don't have to re-advertise. We are only required to have a single hearing. We've had that. We are entitled, we are allowed to have subsequent revisions on this without future hearings. And of course, that makes sense because otherwise you can't go into a public hearing to ask for comment and have it be meaningful if you have to take this thing. And I know I'm right on this because I went through it with Kent when we were doing the comprehensive plan. And I went through some revisions. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't have to renotice it once we kind of got it dialed in. So we can keep working on this. But whoever makes the changes needs to circulate this so that we have a meaningful time to actually look at it. Obviously, I was the only one that caught that.
Yes, Susan. Did you not just extend the moratorium that you have in place to December 30th, 2026?
Yes, it could be. It's just. Yes, that can be done. But we were here to vote on this particular document that I know wasn't written until I think today, right, Amber? And I didn't look at it, I didn't have a chance to look at it until right beforehand. And so we can do that, but this is not set up to do that. And if we approve this, the commissioners will have to redo it themselves.
And
So we-
that document.
It wasn't advertised with this document at all, and that's okay. It doesn't, you don't have to have the exact document advertised. I looked at that extensively because I thought you did. But for how relatively simple I didn't look at the advertisement, but I suspect it's fine.
So we could amend this to say will commence on February.
Well, you gotta be careful. The way you're doing it is trying to catch a date exactly. That's not the right way to do this. There's gotta be something else that comes out. And I don't know what that is off the top of my head.
So we need to push it back to Ethan.
I push it back to Ethan, if he's gonna be doing it, or whoever else, or we can have a meeting where we actually figure it out and look at it.
Or we can vote on this tonight, kick it up to the commissioners, and let them deal with it.
Regarding won't have a public hearing. We won't have to re-advertise. I think we table it until we get a document and vote on it. So it's right.
I make a motion that we table it for tonight, and we have a work session at the next meeting to come up with the wording that we want. And
We
then,
can have a vote. Once it's done, we can vote. I mean, we've had the hearing that we need to have.
Okay, so like we could even vote on it
Yeah.
at the March meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's the problem.
that we're comfortable with.
Yes.
Okay,
But please, we have to have this stuff in a meaningful time to actually look at it. I mean, the lawyer thing, we got a contract here that's potentially worth how many tens of thousands, and I didn't even know it existed until I sat down here. So this anyway. So
So let me get this straight, you'd rather have the ordinance corrected with the language that you want it corrected to, then have a meeting to extend the moratorium based off the ordinance that you corrected and made right. Is that what you're wanting to do?
I think he's saying that like at the next meeting, we can work on the language and vote on it that night.
So basically, you could amend that and state the date as of today and not June 3rd. That would extend your moratorium till December 30th of 2026. Did you not?
How's the legalese of that?
I will tell you, I did not do any legal work on the spot. I am not gonna say yes.
I don't blame you.
I mean,
I don't blame you.
I'm just not even gonna.
So the question that I believe Kelly's asking, and I can believe the same question, is can we amend this that it would state is this moratorium extends the moratorium that is in place to December 30th, 2026. And our recommendation is that to the commissioners.
We would have to include the date as of today based on that change. You don't want to leave a loophole for a time gap for somebody.
I'm gonna cancel this. I don't think you wanna put a start date.
Correct.
You wanna put an extension to the current moratorium. To extend the current moratorium.
I think we get that, and that's our recommendation if we were to do that, is we would be recommending with the amendment that it is the current moratorium is extended to, we don't create a start date.
I make a motion that we table this, have a chance to sit down individually, think about this, and work on this at the next meeting. That's my official.
It's got.
We have until June. Yeah. We're legally covered until June. We need to get this right.
We've held a meeting.
Yeah. I've got a page of notes, you know, I'd love anyone else to.
Motion to table to get, well, you can read that again, or say that again, I'm sorry.
All right, I make a motion that we table it until the next meeting, when we can have a discussion and work on specific language.
Or be able to edit it.
Get it out plenty ahead of time so we can actually look at it,
Right.
and then we can have a.
We kind of want 27, it shouldn't be, that we read to anybody.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, you got my motion. Good.
Motion by Jamie. Jim seconds. So discussion on this, one thing I would like to see is that we were gonna be in abundance of transparency, that we're going directly, this will get to Ethan tomorrow to have him begin his process of looking at this, because that was one of the questions I had was, why does this commence on this date? I thought it was an extension on that. So that was, I'm glad we were bringing that up because the commencing date just did not strike, so we will be sending that to Ethan. I will make sure we discuss that with him to word this correct. And then we will be voting, we're voting on March 27th with the correct verbiage.
If we like the language that is.
We're planning to have an amended vote. As well, our plans. Yes.
That technically was not a motion.
That's what I'm discussing is that I would like to say is that that's our, our intent is not just to have a work session on March 27th. I would like to see that included. Our intent is that we would be able to see that whenever he can get that to us in the next, I'm gonna use just a figurative, a week. Yes, it's on the agenda for the session. Yes. Other discussion? Yeah, we have to understand that. But make sure we don't have any other discussion on that. Any other discussion on favor of the motion to table until March 27th so we can get the wording correct? There's been a motion by Jamie, seconded by Jim. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? 7-0. All right. Second H, old business. We are looking at the subdivision ordinance, but hang on, my memory. Work session on subdivision, but I believe it was Mr. Kilby, you had a question on.
That should
Is
go
that
under
under public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take that in, under public comment. I apologize. So the subdivision ordinance review, as we have that. Yeah, it was, I had to run it through some. So our subdivision ordinance, work session on that, has everybody had a chance to, refer through, or reference this and read through this?
I'm not, I could not get the document.
Anyone else?
I've looked at it, I haven't read it. I would strongly recommend we wait till Roger can be here, because I have changed an enormous amount from the old one we had that was that big to make it simpler. But there's a lot of details that I don't know how that's gonna play out. And some of the stuff that's in there, I can put in there, I can explain my logic on the reasoning, given how our county is currently set up and all that. But all of the stuff with the different levels and stuff and all that. Roger's gonna, that's his.
So you're saying, your recommendation is we don't, his recommendation is we talk through this so that we can,
No,
talk
my
with him.
recommendation is we push this off to the next meeting, we do the solar extension quickly. And hopefully do that vote, and then we can have Roger walk us through this in detail. Otherwise, I really think it's just, we're gonna start over next week, or next month. I thought Roger was gonna be here this week, but I didn't realize it's not.
Other questions, comments?
I know I've said it before in meetings, when we're working through these ordinances, I would love to have them up on a screen so we can all see.
I've been in contact trying to be able to get that. How do we be able to get that so we can see exactly what we're discussing each line, on that?
Okay,
Okay, so we know that the current drafts are open for public review.
This would, I'd say, that was premature for sure.
Yes. But since it is, can we briefly open a public comment section on the subdivision, if anybody's able to see it?
Yeah, the public comment would be amazing.
Public can comment upon it, but it's not the public hearing for it. The public can see what we are discussing. They have avenues to be able to see what we are working on, so they can have, these are documents that we are looking at. They're not top secret documents. So they have the right to see it, and they have the right to comment towards it, but I'm just making sure that it's not thought that it's not a, this is not the public comment period. That has to come once we believe we're at an ending point that we're going to recommend it to the commissioners. Before we go. Probably they may be able to give us some input on it, so then we can help draft it in a better way.
Public sector of an ordinance should be tabled to the very end.
Agreed. I think that's the process that we have to be looking at, is what is our process on this?
You and explain as we go through the technical terminology. Not an engineer might understand, not understand. Someone who is not an engineer.
Correct. I think this is a process. We also have to look at this process. I think this is something we need to look at. Is so we get this by and large from Roger. He writes these, if I'm understanding how he explained to me, is Roger writes this, and then we go from that aspect, and we build from. This is the how many pages did you say it was, Campbell? You helped.
I agree. I haven't read it for a couple months, and then I reread it this afternoon.
But you said you took it from a large amount down to.
All I know is all in our original stuff was around 300 pages. And I've tried to, and the county would need probably half a dozen full-time people to administer those initial drafts. And a lot of it simply would be impossible for the people in the county. I mean, it's just, our county doesn't have the population, we don't have the surveyors, we don't have the engineers. And so I work with Roger extensively to focus on the most important stuff first. I mean, for example, Amber mentioned to me a year ago that there's a fence ordinance. Is it really critical to manage how people put up the fence? Probably not. I talked to Ken when he was the attorney for this group. I said, I asked him, in your opinion, what is the most important stuff outside of solar and other solar? What is the most important stuff for us to do for what would really help the county? And that's where I started. He said we should do a subdivision ordinance. And with that, we should do drainage, road, driveways. And I will admit, one of my, you guys remember earlier here, I came in, rumped all over 70-some pages with the driveways. And I will admit that I was somewhat wrong. Because that also included the roads and whatnot for the subdivision. So fundamentally, the idea is if we have a big subdivision coming in, we need to build plans for drainage so that the change in the structure of the land doesn't dump a bunch of water next door. And we plan for the roads and driveways, which overlap, so that when these subdivisions dedicate roads over to the county is going to have an opportunity before they're built to know how they're built, so the county knows that it's taken over good roads. And Kent said, based on what he's seen in Crawfordsville and all the other all the other places. He said, that is really what we need, it will be manageable, and we can start there. And so that I took his advice, and I took what Roger started with. It's been an enormous amount of time going through, trying to play out every single scenario of how this would play out for a landowner. And there was, and then what this was what you guys have seen and what's been published was the last draft that I had, well, no. It was the last bit of my comments and stuff or changes that I gave to Roger, and Roger made changes. You notice there's a lot of highlighting, a lot of things up in the air. And then the big stuff, as I described to him, things that I thought were important just based on my career, not shut down everything in the county. He's got those in there. I can explain my logic. If people disagree, then I'm fine. We'll fix it, whatever. But then there's a lot of stuff that Roger put in there, and after you explained it to me, I understood. But a lot of it's engineering, a lot of it's technical, which I'm not. So but that's where these current drafts of ordinances came from. And I'll be honest that the vast majority of my efforts were put towards getting us to a starting point on a solar ordinance. So it's more secondary. Roger perhaps was pushing those a little bit more than me because he's on the technical side and saying about that.
So the process we get as the commission, we get the drafts are made, and then we work from there, building it up from ground up, making sure that we look at all these pieces on it. One of the, I mean, just out of this one, the question I got in the one that we have. The property owner shall permit the area planning commission to collect evidence and or exhibits and to routinely inspect, investigate complaints, and copy any or all records relative to the enforcement of this ordinance. This is the one in for subdivision controls. So if it touches that, we have the right, the property owner shall permit the area planning commission to routinely inspect any and all records. So if we touch it in this, I think we need to make sure that we're going through and building up from an aspect of that as we look at the property. I mean, these are the properties of our fair citizens of Fountain County as we're looking at this. So the process of getting these, how do we build ordinances? The very structure of that. How do we build whatever ordinance it is? I know solar is a hot topic for us. It gets the people out, but this is going to affect them as well. As we read this, it was 5. I'll just use a farmer has 5 children, and he subdivides, or let's say it's 6 children, and subdivides it. It's all of a sudden a subdivision, and he's subdividing it underneath to his kids. He's handing his property. He owned 60,000 acres. I'm just making up a number. And he gives 10 to this one, 10 to this one, and 10 to this one, and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, and maybe we should, but we have to. I think that's where having that, if it's there, then the people can read it. It's the transparency portion of it that I think that.
That's one of the portions that I put in for that very reason, because given my line of work, that's what I've seen for 20 years. And when you split up stuff, you're making these people spend thousands and thousands on surveys just so they can inherit their land. It's annoying. So I'm trying to fix that. But again, we are writing laws here that the commissioners have the right to change. Will they realistically? Probably. I mean, maybe some if there's something controversial, but our job here is to write laws, which bluntly citizens don't have the experience to do. It's really not easy. And what Roger had started with, when I got on a year ago, that I think the board was about ready to start. It's 300 pages that was compiled together from bluntly the most heavily zoned counties in the state, because that's what Roger was told to do. And when I read that, I told him, who was on the board at the time, I said, please stop. Let me have a chance to really look at this, because I know what I'm actually looking at. And then we got into the solar, And I've been working on paring these down and focusing on the key parts, but the ones that we've got, the drainage, the roads, the subdivisions, those really go together. I mean, they are all affected.
Absolutely.
I ask you, since I spent so much time on it. Is it possible to do the subdivision ordinance just based on if an individual is purchasing the property to develop and resell?
I'm sorry, can you?
If somebody's purchasing a property to divide, develop and resell, can we just maybe look at that type of?
I had that exact conversation with Roger, actually. And the answer is yes, no, maybe. I'm not really sure. And so that's.
And I'm worrying on it. That's.
Well,
they're not looking at everyday citizens, just built around developers that are coming in to divide, develop and resell.
I think it's doable, and I would like to very much have that conversation. But again, we had to get to some place that would be a good starting point for this group of people to look at. And you cannot do that with zoning ordinances pulled out of Hendricks County. I'm sorry, I don't think so. And so what I've done is meant to be or what we have done, is meant to be a starting point. I don't even say a strong starting point, but a starting point to bring up these exact questions. And then we need to think, and this kind of goes to solar as well. At some point, we say it's good enough, not too restrictive, and then we can come back and amend it as we need, and be aware. But there is no, I mean, the original drafts, everything has to have a building inspector. Well, we don't have a building inspector. So if we're going to put that in there, we got to have some caveats. So if the county doesn't have one, we haven't stopped all building. And so those are all pretty.
Well, there's several titles that are in here. The planning director, which I spoke with Roger about, and I guess as the chair, that is I.
Well,
is what
maybe not.
Is what his explanation was.
So it could be, but most counties have full-time staff. Crawfordsville, because I looked into this, I was trying to, again, thinking through how this plays out. Crawfordsville's got twice the population we do, but they got 6 full-time people dealing with this.
Correct.
And so I've highlighted a lot of those titles because some of those people can be very powerful. So do we even have them? Is the county going to pay for it? It is not realistic to expect a volunteer board to take on a full-time job, or what would be a full-time job on a volunteer basis.
So the question is I'm just proposing to the whole board, I'm not questioning you. I don't mean that to come across, but in 1.06 of this ordinance, it says the planning director. So we have a person named, or a position named, it's now there.
Well, you're gonna have to create it, or we're gonna have to put caveat. I mean, I would have thought that the planning director would be the head of the full-time position that's there. And it can be a long.
So did we just create a full-time position, and I need to notify?
Plus it's gonna happen.
I need to notify the council that we just created you a full-time, and those are the questions that I think, as we are building this, making sure that we have I know we have a representative of the council and we have a representative of the commission on it, but making sure that we are looking from all aspects, and it's not accusatory that we have not. It's just questions I have of this. What does routinely inspect mean? How often can I do it? What is the end of this? When does this routinely inspect end?
That's why this is a draft.
Yeah, but those are the correct questions, and there's a lot of stuff in there that I still, I mean, after like I said, I haven't looked at this for a few months, but after rereading it this afternoon, quickly, there's still a lot of stuff. I was kind of surprised at how much stuff was still there that we got to fix.
Absolutely.
I thought we were further along than that. I think we would start with a thorough understanding of how this would normally play out in all these terms, the major subdivision, minor subdivision, administrative subdivision, those are all laid out in the statute. I mean, there is a form basically that we have to follow ish. And then the question is, how do we make that work here, given the staffing, given what we want to do? I actually love advertising. I mean, like there was that conversation. Does that, how do we make it fit in? And that's what we got to figure out. Keep in mind, Roger's on the engineering side. He is all in on the most technical stuff, because that's his life, I mean, that's what he does. So his understanding is there, and I'm thinking in terms of, okay, we go from nothing to something. We don't have to go all the way.
Other comments from
It's going to be kind of like decision, not really like commission. Council.
If there's not, we can set it up so it doesn't need that, that's my point.
So then the question is then that I have is, as I read the wind, as it's been explained to me, by those that I've asked, being Ethan and Roger, leaning upon them, the wind turbine ordinance as it sits, because they explained, if I understood correctly, that I am the planning director. If it says director, it means because I'm the chair. I guess there's a reason for that. That's what I was explaining. So then if there's supposed to be pre-planned meetings and it goes through solely me, if there were wind turbines that were wanting to come here, that's a lot of collective power inside of one person. And I don't like that. I would think that you would need to at least have several that would be discussing this. In other ordinances, it goes to the zoning administrator. I'm not arguing for or against that I should have this power or not. I just find it strange that one person has this. It's almost like the Caesar at the Colosseum. What lives and what dies goes through one person. And that's across all of these. I think that as we look at these ordinances that we have, and we had the discussion somewhat last month, that there's a spread that's several people. We don't have to have these positions. Maybe they don't have to even be funded, but it's several people have to discuss.
The way the ordinances have to work in it, the structure is we set up whatever we set up. And there are some things that basically get kicked up for further review. That's the way the subdivisions are set up. It comes to this whole board and you know, we get the plat and look at it and all, et cetera, et cetera. But then other things, I mean, take our current ordinance, it's very, very simple. Basically, the rules we have are setbacks. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm in an ag zone or residential, and I meet those setbacks, I'm entitled to build my house. And so because people have to know what they can and cannot do. We cannot set it up where every single thing gets to be the whim of a committee here or one person. Where it gets kicked up then for further review, whether it's here, whether it's the BZA, depending on how those things play out. That's kind of what we need to decide. And so, for example, on subdivision, which again, I'm stressing the very beginning draft, what you mentioned there on the farm ground. The five pieces was random. I put that in there for the exact reason that you brought up, and we plugged in the number 5 to have a starting point. Is that correct? And so if it's under 5, great, they do it. If it's over 5, it would get kicked into a significantly more expensive. I mean, when I say expensive, I'm talking potentially up to $35,000, depending on what we require, you know, just to get it here, just for approval, which then it maybe doesn't happen. And should we require some farming family to pay 30 grand at these fancy drawings to then have to come here and take the risk that I can't even do that? Mm-hmm. Now, you didn't mention there's another caveat in case of death that's in there too. We've covered a lot of different things, but people who have to live by this, which is everybody in the county, has to understand exactly what the rules are. And there's concepts of, you know, ministerial approval where if they need it, we just have to give it to them. Okay, if we want to do building permits, fine, we can charge a fee, fine, but they know they can get it. And so there's a lot of this stuff that has to work out. And that's usually what the full-time staff would do. And that's kind of what Roger's playing now. I mean, Roger's I think, what's his title, the zoning administrator. And so these various ones have gone to the BZA, you know, that are starting to come up more often. People are aware of the rule. We've only got one rule, setback. That's very broadly stated. We've got a very short rule. And already we're getting a lot of, you know, people that are wanting to vary that. Well, Roger, the technical person currently, would look at, okay, here it is, we need drawings, we need measurements, we need to see how that's playing out. And then you say, yes, you comply with the code or the ordinance, how we have it, no, you gotta kick it up, depending on, what it is. And that's how all this plays out. But the more that we can do that people know, if I do this, I'm okay. That's what we need to figure out. And the less that we can kick it up so that people don't really know how it's gonna play out, the better.
Other comments? Is there comments, you stated, is there comments from the public, on the subdivision ordinance as is written? Did you all see? There we go. Subdivision ordinance. Come on up.
And I don't know that I need this either.
At least it helps us here.
Well, that's the thing. So just so everybody up here knows, nobody back here can hear anything you guys are saying but you. And most of us, and I can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you're the only one that people back here have been able to hear most of the night. So
I apologize for that.
Well, it's not your fault. Just want you to know that the sound and everything. So back to the subdivision ordinance. I don't really know because I haven't got to see these, but you said the one is like 300 pages.
No.
I'm sorry, 300 pages.
When I first got on the board,
The first
the
one.
proposal all in was about 300 pages.
Okay, so now it's down to
40 something.
42.
Well, the 300 was everything, but not just the subdivision.
Okay, so
I probably, I mean, I haven't, I don't think I've looked at it, for example, the driveway ordinance with 70-some pages, and I think we've got it down to 12 or something, but I don't think I've looked at it. I just didn't feel like 70 pages on driveway was necessary.
It was a massive proposal.
It was, but the current subdivision ordinance is what, 45 pages or something?
40, yeah.
But again, these are extremely preliminary. I was just trying to get it to be manageable, present to you and start a conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. So my question is a little bit, because I don't know if anybody here is aware, but we had a subdivision that tried to get slipped in out by where we live, which is on Rockville Road. So a lot of the people that are here, Rockville Road in Petersburg, thankfully, Petersburg had the 2-mile fringe radius. That's what saved us. So if you're saying to me that, or to all of us, that the subdivision ordinances are being written by Roger Azar, correct? Is he's the one who is?
The current draft, I wrote most of it based on what had originally, you gotta start from someplace.
Yeah.
And so I took the very big one, took an axe to it, chopped it down, spent a lot of time with Roger, trying to understand technical stuff that is not what I do. And so some things, okay, especially on the road side, why do we want this? Well, the county's gonna have a road, it's okay, then it started to play. But it's not fair on the current draft to say that is Roger writing that. I did a lot too. Well, anyway.
Yeah, so, but Roger's very aware then of what you and he have been writing. So he's also, or been trying to draft, however you want to put that, about even just driveways and subdivisions, but he also then is contracted by the county, is that correct?
To do this job, yeah.
To do this job.
At least as far as this, or I don't know what else he does.
Yeah.
He's the county engineer, zoning administrator. I believe he also fills in time for time as a surveyor designee or something like, he helps out with that, something like that.
So he was at the Petersburg meeting, the BZA meeting he was there in place of the developer. He said at the meeting that he was there hired by the developer. He wasn't there for the county, he was for the developer. Asking for a variance to do a subdivision of 12 houses when the Petersburg ordinance clearly stated 3. He did say that the Petersburg town had not provided the mapping to him, which was that otherwise, but he said something about Covington being a half mile, even though there's a 2-mile fringe or whatever, but he clearly knew where the county or where the town where it ended and then where
ETJ. Yep. ETJ, the extraterritorial jurisdiction.
helping the developer then, and he even came to the county or to the BZA meeting in Petersburg on behalf of the developer who did not show up. But he was there for him. So I have provided the minutes to a couple of you because I did have the email addresses for you. But the minutes they weren't very long. But he was asked there if that was a conflict of interest for him to be there on behalf of the developer. He's also the one that helped, I guess you would say, engineer or draw out this 12 housing development that was bought with the intention, according to him, of doing 12 houses out there. But the neighbors were all told that there were only going to be 4 to 5 houses, but he stated at that meeting that it was going to be 12 houses originally. So he was there on behalf of the developer for that. So he should be clear that whether, even if he thought that it was county, if he's helping write these ordinances and for subdivisions or whatever it is in the county, he should have been clear, even if he thought it was county and not town, that they weren't getting permits like they were supposed to. Nothing was done for the driveways. I talked to the county, they just stuck driveways in. I believe that he was aware of that. There were no permits requested the time that I have called several times to the health department for the septics or the water. There wasn't any study done on any of that. So Roger should have been aware of that since he is contracted with the county also.
No.
I don't know if there's, I mean, that's.
What developer did he say? You were saying he said he was,
For Ratcliffe, Inc., I don't know what they actually go by. Yeah, Ratcliffe Inc. So I also have sent some of the letters to the only emails that I had that was a copy of the letters that we presented at the BZA meeting in Petersburg. So that you can see what at least the people in our area thought about that subdivision going in, which it was actually in my back door too. But there was a little bit, maybe an acre worth of a little bit of woods left between us, and then all of what was going to be put in over there. So most of the people wrote letters that are from that area. So I did provide those just so you know how we feel out there. I fully believe that a lot of other people in the county are going to feel the same way if they live out in the country. They live there for a reason. They don't want subdivisions coming in and just taking over. They don't want to live in town. That's why they live in the county for the most part. And so that's how I feel like a lot of people are going to feel the same way that we did. And then for them to get just slipped in on them also. And so, you know, obviously what happened with us, somebody died, property got sold before auction. That's how that happened over there. So I feel like other people in the county are going to think the same as what we do. Maybe not everybody, but that's just my opinion on that.
Thank you, ma'am.
So.
Questions for?
I will forward that email that you sent me on to the rest, maybe a couple others have it. But I will forward that on that I got this afternoon on the rest of everybody here.
Okay, that's
you as well.
Yeah, it wasn't just trying to be personal with somebody, but it was the only 3 emails I had when you're on the phone trying to forward things. So that's why it happened like that. So that's why
Other questions for Dee? All right. Other comments about subdivision ordinance? Mr. Kelvin?
Actually, this is a call. Okay, our ordinance administrator, okay, I did a request of all building permits, stop work orders, and email correspondences on October 11th, 2024. I have attached a list of permits for new houses that included when the permit was received, when the septic permit was received, when the permit was approved by any interesting notes. What I found compelling is that our zoning administrator cannot separate his personal business practices from his county duties. In fact, findings are unethical and shows a bias in dealing with Ratcliffe Homes, so he works for as an engineer. A clear conflict of interest. The role of the administrator is to look out for the county and ensure compliance with all permits that were turned in by normal everyday citizens that were processed correctly. The permit was received, the septic permit was issued, and the building permit was approved with exceptions of permits from Ratcliffe. On the list of homes, you can see there were multiple permits that were approved before septic permits was issued. In this packet of information, I included approval sheets, the septic review section on Ratcliffe permits that he states that the health department said there was no good reason to hold up the permit. On regular citizens, he states that the septic permit must be complete before approval. There is even an email from the health department telling him not to hold up permits that is good to go. He responds as if the officer is out of line. He does not do as directed, and the permit is only approved after receiving the septic permit. There's an email discussing the stop work order for Grub Lane, September 11th, 2024. This was not issued by the zoning administrator, whose job it was to make sure there was no compliance. He has been seen by myself on the website working with a stop work order and no permit on this location along with building crews. He approves the permits and should have known that there was no approved permits. After this notice was sent, he approved 4 permits on 9/13/24. A stop work order was sent 9/20/24. There were several other permits on several other homes completed on the market. One house was already sold and lived in before there was a septic permit was ever approved. Not only that, but a commissioner responded that we can't show favoritism. He does all Ratcliffe engineering and drawings. He has worked for him for many years and started with building homes in Montgomery County. So why are our zoning administrator is basically working to screw us over, for lack of a better term. Does he work for us or does he work for Ratcliffe? I think that's a big question. And if he's writing our ordinances, that's a big problem. So that's all I gotta say.
So you submitted this here. I will get along with trying to remember the name of I think it was Mrs. Bruner, if I remember correct. They gave me this. I will get this to everybody. We'll get copies submitted on that. Okay, I'll try to get to all of them. We'll get those so that we can be able to look at all of these. Questions we have for Mr. Clint? Anyone else on subdivision? Here we go. Your name, ma'am?
Jody Pilecki.
Jody.
And I just want to state, I know there was a big discussion about conflict of interest at the beginning, and you're talking about financial. I think from some of the statements you've heard, there's pretty much a definite conflict of interest with the zoning administrator and his role with Ratcliffe Development. And I think that the county and we really need to look at that, and we need to understand that, and we need to really question and support, do we want this person writing ordinances that really put money directly in his pocket, and what's that relationship? So I just ask that you look at that and that we take that into consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Drew?
I'm going to ask you to speak to the commissioners also.
Any other comments about the subdivision ordinance? Questions, comments from the commission?
I have a question. What responsibility, can you guys hear me in the back now? Okay, what responsibility does Roger have to fill out one of these conflict of interest forms? Does he have a responsibility? I think it should be disclosed, but I don't know the legalese behind it. When the county has hired him to do this.
He's a contractor.
Right, is there?
I don't think the county's got any authority over.
I think that's something we need to shoot up to Ethan.
Is he an employee?
Yeah, well, did you say he's a contractor?
He's not.
Okay.
I mean, that.
So I guess my question for Ethan is, what is Roger's responsibility as the contracted zoning administrator to disclose any conflict of interest. And I don't know legally it's not.
I got that written down. Any questions?
Point out to Jim's comment, this group has very limited powers. Authority. We have authority to vote ordinances. And we have authority to, subdivisions, once we get that ordinance in place. There are, we can rezone, but there is a very tight sphere legally what this group has to do. A lot of this stuff falls way outside of our boundaries. And we shouldn't step on toes that belong to council.
Need to refer it up. Yes. Other comments on subdivision from us?
I want to make one comment because this has come up over the last year. I want to make sure everybody understands. If we sign off on something we have written, and even if somebody else does a draft, the whole point of this, you cannot write anything realistically from scratch with a committee. You've got to have something to start from, and regardless of who started the draft, I mean, when this is done, even though I spent a lot of time writing these ordinances, rewriting them just to get us to a starting point, it's not my ordinance, not Roger's ordinance. It is this group. So I think
once we do that, and once we have the vote and we send it up for with our approval, not approval or no comment.
We kick it upstairs.
When it becomes their, and then they put their stamp on it. I guess the question I'm hearing from the people as we're discussing this ordinance here, the question comes up on this: where are we getting our data? I think that's a fair question on that. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. County engineer is not an elected official. I believe that's the county commissioners. They meet on the first and third Mondays of the month. No, I'm not. I'm just saying is so is when that's time you can discuss with them, because as was mentioned, we're considering things, but I don't want to come across as we have jurisdiction over. That's where I'm not trying to pass the buck. I'm trying to point you in the right direction, type of thing. Anything else over H? Board of committees or officers on I. I don't know how many committees we have yet established. So J, new business of the solar ordinance. I just wanted to bring up the fact as we we're looking at the moratorium that we as we look at the moratorium, I wanted to bring up the fact that we will be looking at the solar ordinance continuing. We don't have a solar ordinance that's in place we do have a solar ordinance in place. We're looking at making sure we're writing it correctly. So that will be continued work that we will have on that is what I wanted to put on that. J is public comment. Is there any other? I know we've had a lot of comment, and I don't mind that at all. I'm appreciative of all your comments. Is there any other comments you would like to make? Sue, if you can come on up here and grab the mic.
Anderson. I was just wondering, when you were talking about drafts on these ordinances, why can't you put the drainage, the roads, and the driveways all in with the subdivision?
Fundamentally, that's what we're doing. The reason they are set up as separate ordinances is basically because that's how it's done in the county. I mean, it could be, it's nothing more than an organizational tool. We could call it big subdivision ordinance and just put the different sections and call it subdivision and driveways and drainage, do all of that. That being said, for example, let's say we ever had a factory come in or something. Okay, maybe subdivision wouldn't be the thing that would fall under, but you would still want to be worried about the roads going into it, but the intersection, and you would want to be worried about the drainage. And so part of the reason then that they're separate is so that they can get referred to that way, so when they're applicable for other things other than just a subdivision. But then the catch is, which is, I'm guessing probably where you're going, it catches everybody.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
And so that was part of my habit job.
Yes.
So to
Yes.
try to do that, accept out things and whatnot. I mean, the original draft, for example, when I built my new house, I had to widen my driveway by 8 feet or something because I had a cement truck fall off the old driveway. It's a disaster. And so before we started construction, I widened the driveway. It's a gravel driveway that's been there for probably 120 years. And all I did is dump more gravel right there. The original draft that I saw was going to require, first of all, prohibit gravel. It was going to require full-on engineering drawings and all sorts of other stuff. And so what do? For a half concrete driveway and be loaded out gravel, and it just didn't make sense out here. And so that's the sort of stuff that I try very hard to bring to and play through how these scenarios play out, and that's what we're going to do here. But the reason they are separate is because there are other instances beyond the subdivision where those would be relevant, and then you gotta. That's how that's the organizational reasoning, and that can be fixed by saying, well, in this area you don't have to deal with this. Just,
right.
We're trying to.
Right.
We'll see how it plays out.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to think, instead of having all these ordinances, just having one, but I understand where you come from there, but, I just saw on the driveway, it's limited to how many driveways you can come in on your property. And that's.
That's an issue as well. I will say that one I had misunderstood a bit, and Roger explained it to me, and actually I think the reason I misunderstood it is because the draft did not have in there what he was thinking. It's kind of like the thing tonight, thinking it's an extension, but it's not. And so that's some of that. That's some of that as well. And that specific thing has to do with line of sight. If you're coming over a line hill, but that's not what it was written. And so you gotta write it for what you mean.
All right. Thanks.
Tom was gonna handle it, and I have talked extensively about making it this ordinance applicable around the county, and I can assure you that's where I'm coming from.
And I can't remember how many. I've been to a couple of council meetings, maybe not the commissioner meeting. I know since PW is there, but I've thrown up little red flags of without the proper framework and infrastructure, this could be really bad. Yeah. So
other public comment.
It's that on the driveway issue. Back on the driveway issue, looking through that ordinance.
Back on the driveway issue, back to that proposed ordinance that you worked to put together. So I had to look at
it is not even a
ordinance
at this point.
the working copy.
These are drafts of
Drafts that, yes.
Yeah. So so what is it between the center of the road and to somebody's house? So our current setback is 60 feet. But when we look at the numbers that we're talking in this driveway for that right of way, and I've got the Indiana code. So basically, for those who don't know, the Indiana code is the baseline. We can have more stringent where we are, but the baseline is, and this is the Indiana code, says that a county executive may establish the apparent right of way of a county highway. However, the width of the apparent right of way may not exceed 20 feet on each side of the center line, exclusive of additional widths required for cuts, fills, drainage, utilities, and public safety. That's the current code. And ours goes a little bit further than that. But the concern I've got is when we do our setbacks, I'm a numbers guy, so let me find my paper here. So the county has 635.8 road miles that we are responsible. We own and maintain that section of 20 feet from the center of the road out to your property. And if you get on Beacon, you can look at your property and it will say that you had that amount abated. You don't pay any tax on that. Okay. Now then, what we're proposing when we put this together, so let me get this to a number that you can kind of extrapolate. So we use Dolphin as the big demon in the room. So we know how big Dolphin is, how many acres it is. So currently the county owns 3,082 acres of land to maintain our roads. What we're proposing through our driveway proposals we're putting together, we won't call them ordinances, the proposals we're putting forward, we're actually going to triple that. That's going to go to 9,248 acres that the county is now going to possess, maintain, and control. And as I'm reading through what you can and can't do on that section of the driveway area, which is that easement coming up, you can't even plant flowers there. You can't plant a tree there. I guess we can still plant grain there because we can do that. But if you wanted to put a timber plot in, you can't plant trees on it. I know my neighbor's got one of those. I guess he'd have to get a variance for that. But this is the kind of stuff when we look at it. Okay, we're going to look at, that's 9,000 acres. That's the size of Dolphin that the county's going to take over, possess, and control. And say, and you can't pour concrete there, you can't put bricks there, you can't put anything there. You can put your driveway, but you can't put anything else. So those are my concerns that we look at, start seeing what we're doing here. I mean, and that's and when I use that 635 miles, that's in the ag zone area. You know, there are areas where, yes, it's appropriate to have these type of things. Those are within our cities. And they're 2 mile buffer out there. So that's going to capture those developments that go in. But do we really need those kind of setbacks for ag land? That's the question. And there's tons of case law backing up as to what the right of way really is, based on even some of it is where the fence was originally put at along the ditch and how many years it was there. So I think we got to be real careful as we start looking at this and looking at what we're going to bite off before we take a big chunk.
Sure. Any other comment?
I'd like to make a comment on what you said about the right-of-ways on Beacon. I don't know if you've noticed, but some parcels, property lines still go to the center of the road, and some parcels start at the right-of-way. So there is a little bit of a, confusion on where exactly do those those setbacks start, because I think the current ordinance says 60 feet from the property line, if I'm not mistaken. So, it does mess with the setback that Roger would like to have is the 15 feet for your right of way. And then from the edge of the right of way, then it's back 60 feet. So there is some confusion there that does need to kind of be discussed and figured out what we're going to do with that.
And I also think the larger concern when we talk about solar is that when we have that setback for utility, that 60 feet, that means that a transmission line can go right in front of your house. Even if you say no, it can still go there because we granted it and said utilities. So we gotta think this through.
Any other public comments tonight? Communication from members. Well, Ellie?
All of this discussion about ordinances and setbacks and subdivisions and driveways and everybody's concerns is all for naught if you don't have somebody enforcing it. So until you make a decision that you're gonna have somebody that's gonna come and check somebody's driveway to their ag field and say, you know what? Your permit is good to go.
Except for.
You have laid it out on a piece of paper, you didn't have to have it surveyed, and you turned it in, and you did exactly what was said on that permit and that drawing. And then they have somebody come out and say, yep, you did it exactly the way we wanted you to do it, or no, you didn't. And until you have somebody that can do that, all of this conversation that we've had all night tonight about everything is for nothing. Yes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kelly. Communication from members. Mr. McKee, anything? Absolutely. Anybody? Amber, any communications from members? Okay. Ken?
The only thing I'll say is we've got to get this stuff more than a few hours before we meet.
Mhm.
It's not fair to us. We put in the time to do it. It's not fair to people that are hoping we're doing what's best for them to vote on things we've never seen before.
I think we're about 3 meetings and we've never even looked through any of this.
I'll take responsibility over that because you called and asked, and I know that you've reached out to Ethan previously. I didn't know anything about it. Ethan wasn't sure. So I'll admit.
I'm not making any blame.
I'm just glad that you pointed it out. So I just want it to be done right, but yeah, it was kind of a rush job, I agree.
As we're getting these processes, I want to make sure we're getting, as is being discussed tonight, of all of these pieces, making sure we're getting the information out as we look at all these things to be able to make sure that this is, I mean, as we had tonight, I mean, we look at this, make sure this is going. I think that's one of the things we need to have is a dedicated attorney for us of the APC. Having that ability, making sure that we have, and make sure we have an APC attorney that we can rely on. I think it's much to put onto the county attorney because the commissioners are going to ask questions. The council members have questions. They've got meetings. I guess he's the PCA attorney as well. So, how many meetings are we expecting our county attorney to attend? On that. So I think we need to make sure that we're looking at that. That's the only thing that I would have on that. Next meeting we have is March 27th. We've got a lot of work to do. I'm considering, are there dates that we have as members that I mean, meeting once a month, you know, it's we didn't even get into an ordinance tonight. It's 9:10.
When we set something up for it's just a work job, like once a month.
That we meet together and we start hammering.
I'm good with that because once we get to April, I'm hitting this the rest of the year.
Yeah. Is there a date that we'd like to and we'll make sure we notice it correctly, but what's a date that we could be able to have a work meeting that we're proposing does?
I would propose we do the Thursday. If we did it the first Thursday, and we would be alternating week. Second.
Or for the few exceptions, yeah.
So if we did like the second Thursday of March,
Yes, I would be good.
March 13th?
I know for a fact I will be gone on stage.
Oh, yes, I'll be gone in March.
I mean, you said it well, but
Going forward, if we come up with some sort of schedule,
Yeah.
I guess now you're gonna start getting into spring break.
But spring breaks and where we've got, I mean, but then right around the corner there, they're gonna be looking at putting tractors in the field to plant. Please do that, we need that. Cause March 13th, I'm just putting a date, or maybe there's a better one.
So,
Correct. Okay, so,
man, I'm not gonna say I won't be here, but I can tell you about it 1,000%.
You send us for sure when you're gonna.
so is March 11th better?
I'm not the whole week.
Yeah, I need a week after, the week before. Or which would be next week. I'm gone.
March 6th?
I'm gone 10 through 14.
March 6th, are you in Gamble? Next Thursday? But then I'm gonna have to check around, I mean,
I was gonna say the thing is if Roger is not available.
I think we need to be able to come up with a time where we, I mean, today, and I'm not trying to call him out, but Mr. Bertolino had a family, thing come up that he couldn't get out of, so.
Yeah, that's what
We have to have, just be fair to you guys, we've got to have the solar stuff's easy. It's the subdivision and the sub ordinances that are really, really hard. And we need to do a top down, even step back a bit and say, this is how it's structured and why. Because that's the way it is. And 20 years ago, I didn't understand all that either. I spent dozens of hours trying to understand what stuff, and all of a sudden it started to click. And we've got to somehow help everybody understand that, otherwise it just.
That conversation probably needs to include Roger
Yes,
as the
absolutely.
technical expert.
Yeah.
which loops back into the attorney. Should we be looking for somebody that has some experience doing this, that's sitting here with us as well?
But my opinion on this, I have no idea who this is. I mean, I work with a lot of attorneys all over the state, to do different things. And I'm not saying she can't do it at all. I have no idea. I mean, you gotta do a little bit of due diligence. You can't sign a retainer agreement that could cost you $100,000 and not realize it. And the thing's what, 6, 7, 8 pages long? I'm ready yet. So, but
I think that'll be something we'll be bringing up at the March 27th meeting.
I will tell you, having an attorney to help us, ideally should be present here. I feel very strongly about that. I've done a lot of stuff on Zoom, a lot of hearings over Zoom and that sort of stuff. It is simply not as effective. And I will also say, I've heard in public comments for the last year of how they were using Roger because he's a property owner, he's a foreigner. Somebody from Indy is not going to necessarily understand what we need here. And they'll say, well, that's how we do it in Pittsburgh. That's how we do it in Zionsville. And so if you can find somebody that is more local, that could actually show up here regularly with us, like we need, and to actually understands our area, it would be a lot cheaper and would be actually a lot more beneficial. And if there's something that is outside of the purview that you got to find some specific expert in, I mean, it has nothing to do with this, but I mean, bank, we use half a dozen attorneys all over the state, where we're dealing with, what it is, et cetera, et cetera. So, but from day to day, having somebody as local as we can get would be very beneficial. Not really.
It costs them. That's what gets me, like, 3 hours of driving time.
It's not gonna cost.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
the way
lot
it
of
works.
money to pay someone who drives.
That's the way it works.
Well, I will say in the past, the council has always paid the bill of legal fees because we need it. I mean, the planning commission didn't even have legal fees in the budget for a few years. It was just paid. Again, it's a cost of business. Now, obviously, we want to be as frugal as we can and get somebody that is doing it, but I'm sure Ethan's cost, even Campbell's cost, would be more than the $20 that we budgeted. And I know that discussion's been had at the council level many times, but it's a cost we've got to have. You know, I think just the last 2 years is the first time that we've actually budgeted legal fees for the planning commission.
And I think we did that because you guys ran into a problem last year, and we decided we got to give you guys your own funds. Right.
But I think tonight is a perfect example. We had that example here. Said, there's an issue, the problem here. That it could have been kind of complicated thing for the day. So. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
I don't know that we adjourn.
We have a motion, Campbell made a motion to adjourn. KW seconded, all in favor? Bet you it's 7-0. Closing time 9:18. Where's the? Yes.